Good night, everyone. So if you guys can hear me, you can just type it in the chat. I should be able to see it. And you can let me know if you're seeing my screen. Okay, thank you. Hearing and seeing. Okay, I'll move this. I just want to ensure that everybody gets in first. All right, so based off how I'm seeing this going, I might be interrupted throughout the presentation just to actually allow persons to join the chat room because I wasn't able to actually add a co-host on. You guys would have been interacting with Melissa and Jefta. So so you guys would have been familiar with with those two. They would have been the co-host on this call. And of course, most of us already know why we're here. I should see everyone's request to join once they do come on. So without further ado, we'll just get started. Just to gauge expectations, this call is going to last perhaps around 1 hour. I'm leaving a significant amount of time for Q&A just so you guys can ask all the questions that you might have. All right? All right, so let's begin. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Devroyd Davis. I am not a financial advisor and I'm not a licensed investment advisor. I identify primarily as an investor. I have been investing on the stock exchange for a number of years. I started back in October of 2013. And my first shares were actually in Lasco Distributors and Lazim. Bought them way too expensively. Bought them way too expensive at that point in time, but that experience got me into stocks and got me into developing basically a passion for doing analysis on companies, finding out what they're really worth and trying to pay less for them. My background I would have had here is in engineering, physics and programming, but I've done quite a few courses in financial analysis, in basically anything as it relates to the stock market and other investments. So I've done financial analysis, I've done financial accounting, I've done corporate finance, I've done even governance, and I recently completed the Bloomberg certification as well as the Jamaica Stock Exchange's online securities course. So that's basically it for me. As most of you would have known, I also run the YouTube channel Beyond the Stock Price, and I'm a writer on our own website, which is CaribbeanValueInvestor.com. All right. So for tonight, we're going to be looking at the Tropical Batteries IPO. Here you're able to see the agenda. Guys, if there's any problem throughout, you just let me know, and you can type it either in the chat or in the WhatsApp group, okay? So we're going to look basically at the IPO, just an overview of it. Most of the information is all you would have probably known already. We'll talk a little bit about the company history, and then we'll delve into their financial performance. We'll look at their growth potential, and then we will look at, and this is probably the crux of this presentation, we'll look at the current valuation and then my expectations of the stock's performance after listing. That is, what will the stock do once it has listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange? And is there a potential for profit there? And leading on from that, we'll look at whether or not we are buying the shares. We, as in that being myself and Caribbean Value Investor. And then lastly, we'll look at some questions that you guys might have. And these questions can be related to investments in general, or they can be specific to this particular stock that we'll be going through tonight. All right. Okay. So in terms of the Tropical Batteries IPO, they're offering a total of 325 million shares at $1 per share. However, of that 325 million share, only 162,500,000 will be offered by the company. That means that the company will only be collecting $162 million, $162.5 million for itself, and it's for it to actually invest in terms of its growth. The remaining 162.5 million is going to go to the selling shareholders, and they are under no obligation to put back that money into the company. If they choose to do that, then it's entirely up to them, but the amount that we will see reflected in the company's financials will be 162.5 million Jamaican dollars. So that's why on the prospectus, it says that the offer is being made on behalf of the company and the selling shareholders. Only half of the money will actually go to the company. All right. Now, the offer for the shares is split between what they term the public pool and the reserved pool. And they go on to define what the reserved pool is, and we'll look at that. But of the general public, we can only apply for up to 137.5 million shares. And by the way, that $137.5 million is actually, in context, it's not a lot of money. What we've observed historically is that when a company comes to the market seeking anywhere between 100 million and 500 million, typically the shares are oversubscribed in very short order. And one of the reasons for that is because there are individuals and institutions out there that could buy up all of those shares. All of that 325 million shares could be bought up by NCB, Grace Kennedy, even one of the pension funds. So it's not really a lot of money for an issue such as this one. So for us, the general public, we will apply to the general pool, and I'll get into my expectations as to how that will actually play out. The reserved pool is a set of shares that they basically set aside for specific individuals and institutions. And on the next slide, we'll talk about who those people are that 187.5 million shares are reserved for. And of course, if you qualify, oh, this is important. All right. The company has a dividend policy, which they say that they will distribute, or they're willing to distribute up to 50% of their net profits, subject to the need for capital reinvestment into the company. So if they don't have any need for funds, they are willing to distribute up to 50% of that as dividends to shareholders. So this is a breakdown of the reserved shares. So 22.5 million shares are reserved for the company's directors, employees, as well as for the mentor of the company. And in the prospectus, they define who the mentor is and who the directors are. I won't get into that because that can just be read, and I can send you guys just the bios of all of the directors. Another 20 million shares is set aside for key stakeholders. That is businesses and individuals that the company has special dealings with. So for example, they may be industry partners, or they may be subsidiaries, or they might be other executives within the company. There's another 70 million that is reserved for persons they call strategic investors. And by strategic investors, they mean people who could actually invest in the company and try and help it to grow. So one of their growth plans is to actually get an expansion, or an expansion of their current parking lot at their head office, but also they're looking to renovate their current retail stores. So a strategic investor could, for example, and then finally, 75 million shares are reserved for the broker. And this is not uncommon, especially among boutique brokers. NCB is technically not a boutique broker, but the brokers tend to reserve some of the shares for themselves. And I'll get into it a little bit later as it pertains to what they can do with those shares. But and that's why brokers tend to take up a significant number of shares when they're bringing a company, especially a junior market company, to the market. That note at the bottom is just saying that if any of the shares that are reserved are not taken up by the persons they are reserved for, then they are actually, they will first go to the other reserved pool, and if those persons don't take them up, then they will defer to the general pool. So you can think of it as, for example, going to a ball, for example, and they have the reserved chairs for like the guest of honor and their family members, or the host family members, and the family members don't come, but they have a whole heap of people outside wanting to come in. Did I say a ball? Should I mean like a concert or a gala? So those chairs, then they could potentially seat members of the general public, or seat VIP members. So that's how you would think about the reserve shares and that clause that is at the bottom. All right. So now we know how much money they're trying to raise. We know what they're we know who they're intending to sell to and how much money will actually go to the company versus the selling shareholders. But what do they want the money for? So according to the prospectus, they're looking to expand their current product lines to add, for example, lithium ion batteries and renewable storage products. So like those big batteries that they use in renewable energy installations, for example, solar modules. When they're installing them, you have to have a place to store all of that excess energy, and it must be stored in the DC form. So that's batteries. So that's one of the areas that they haven't really gotten into yet, at least not in a major way. So they're looking to expand on that aspect of the business. And then they're looking to also get into complementary products. So tires, for example, the majority of their customers are persons who drive. So naturally, they're going to need to maintain their cars. And there are other products that Tropical Batteries could introduce to also sell to those customers. So the tires, lubricants, seals, for example, the timing belts and stuff like that, that vehicles do need to operate and do tend to change from time to time. Those are some of the additional products that they could introduce. They also intend to renovate their existing retail stores. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and how a strategic investor could actually come in and help them with that. And they're also, I also mentioned that they're looking to expand their parking at their #1 retail store, which is a Grove Road location. And then they're also looking to acquire business intelligence software and inventory management software. And that will allow them to basically provide a better customer experience, but it will also greatly improve the efficiency within their stores. A quick point on this. About 2 years ago, Lasco Manufacturing embarked on a similar initiative that was to acquire business intelligence and inventory management systems. And within the 2 years that followed, their net income actually doubled. So I say that to say that point about acquiring business intelligence and inventory management systems can have a significant impact on the company's bottom line. And then lastly, they're looking to expand their mobile and home delivery fleet of vehicles. That will add to their balance sheet in terms of addition of new assets. All right, so when the IPO opens on September 22nd and is due to close on September 29th, I believe it will be open for a week. My suggestion is for you guys to treat the opening date as the closing date, especially when you see situations where companies like this that are so highly anticipated and they're offering such small number of shares, small being relative. You want to apply for the shares during the pre-opening session, which is now. So the shares, you can actually apply for the shares through Moneyline on JMMB. I know that that's a possibility, as well as through the Go IPO platform. I'm not sure if it is yet on Proven's IPO Pro platform or if it is on Barita's platform as yet. I'm not sure. But I know for a fact that it is on Go IPO and it is on JMMB's Moneyline platform. And you guys already know this, but the lead arranger is NCB Capital Markets. All right, so just a brief history on who Tropical Batteries is. They've been operating for over 70 years in Jamaica. They were incorporated on July 10th, 1952, so they're officially 68 years old. But like I've mentioned, the company has been in operation before then, and they're one of Jamaica's most recognized brands in the space of battery distribution. So next, let's look at the company's financials.